Hi guys! I'm trying a new camera situation, so let's hope this is working. Well, I'm using my Pocket 3 camera, which is what I vlog with. You can use it as a webcam. However, I have some sort of like PTSD surrounding it because I did this once before, and just before I went to go live, it disconnected as a webcam and it would not reconnect. So I had to scramble, and it was very stressful. Thank you so much for joining me again on a Sunday evening. I love our monthly live streams, the last Sunday of every single month, and we try to theme them. And today's theme is stop ruining your Disney trips. So I'm going to be talking about the things that I've done previously or I see people do that can negatively impact your trip. And it's one of those things that if you've never been before, you don't necessarily know these are not good things to do. So today we're going to talk about them. I'm also going to be answering your questions. I've had some really, really great questions come in. Some of them about the topic, and some of them just about Disney in general, which is always so exciting. So, thank you for joining once again. Hi, Steve, how are you doing? Lovely to see you. And yeah, I think this is going to be a great, great topic. This is something that I've been wanting to do planning videos about, but I thought let's have a nice live stream about it. And you can also add in questions, or if you have things where you're like, oh, I did this and I learned from it, or I see people do this and I think, oh my God, what are they doing? So I think it'll be super, super, super fun. So maybe we'll start with some of the questions because it's always fun to answer the questions. And thank you so much for everyone who sends them in because it's so, so, so nice. And I had one from Sarah at Great Experience Travel, who is an amazing travel agent, and we've become good friends. And one of her questions is, how many times have I been to Disney? Which I think is a fantastic eh, question because I don't think I've ever actually answered this or properly let people know. So I've actually been to Disneyland Paris. I think it's at least 15 times, but it's some of those things where you're like, there may be trips that I have forgotten because I did some trips like when I was very, very young. Um, I actually went the year Disneyland Paris opened, which makes me feel very old. One time, we won a competition and we got a trip to Disneyland Paris as a family, which was amazing. Another time, I think it was the year actually that it opened. We went to use the swimming pool. Couldn't use the hotel swimming pool because Michael Jackson was using it, which was amazing. Didn't see him, but he was on the other side of the door, which was like the most 90s story ever. But Disney World, I've been to 6 times. I've also been to Florida another time, but we didn't do Disney, which was wild. We did do Universal, but then we also took a road trip up to Savannah in Georgia, which was amazing. It was only a 4 hour drive, amazing place to visit. So that was very, very nice. And then I've been to Disneyland in California 3 times. Never been to any of the Asian parks. I am absolutely desperate to visit. Have any of you been? And I know I'm missing out. I know I'm missing out. I watch lots of people's vlogs. I've got friends that have been. I need to go. We need to make it happen. Hi, what in the Disney world? It's so great to see you. I very luckily bumped into them as I was leaving Disneyland Paris. We just crossed paths. So it's been lovely to be able to chat since we've both returned. And hi Louise, it's lovely to see you. How are you doing? It's always so so lovely to have you all here and chatting away. And I never take for granted that you give up your time on a Sunday. So thank you so much because I think it's a nice way to like unwind from the week, but I also know people are busy. So it's very, very nice of you all. Hi Mark, lovely to see you. How are you doing? Oh, hi Ariane, how are you doing? It's lovely for you to be joining us as well. And it's so lovely to see you. And I'm also obsessed. Mark has a menagerie of incredible animals, and I love seeing the updates. It's wonderful. Hi Zoe, lovely to see you. Louise says Michael Jackson wrote, signed under the grand piano in the suite in the Disneyland Hotel. I'm hoping it's still there in the Frozen suite. That would be amazing. Imagine if you saw that. You just were in the room, you came across it. That would be incredible. Today I went to see my cousin's daughter, I don't have any siblings, so we still call her my niece and I'm her aunt, which is very, very generous of them. And we mentioned Michael Jackson, no idea. Young people have no idea who Michael Jackson is. And I'm like, I can't believe we live in a world now where people don't know who Michael Jackson is. Hi, John with the Thompsons. I am so looking forward to your Disney World trip. It's been amazing. I've been living vicariously through you, and definitely going to be living vicariously through you very soon when you are off. Oh, you're eating cinnamon graham cookies. Oh my God. It's the best when people bring you gifts back. So to get a little treat from Disney World and then you feel like you've got a little bit of Disney at home is the absolute best. It's so, so nice. Ooh, Travel with Thompson said the piano is still in the Frozen suite. Okay, we need someone to stay there. Whoever's willing to sacrifice their bank account for us to find out if it is there. That's so, so interesting because you'd think by now someone would have mentioned it. But I suppose if you don't know, you're not going to go like looking underneath the piano or checking it. But we need someone to find out. This is vitally important information. But I love those little touches. I think it's so interesting that in all of the parks, there's these tiny little hidden details that unless you know about them, you would never know. But once you know, you're like, I'm on the lookout. Something that I spent years looking for, and I don't know why I could not find it. And I think it's because I was thinking it was somewhere else. But the casting agency door in Disneyland Paris, I've seen it in every other park. Could not find it in Disneyland Paris for love nor money. And I think I was just constantly looking in the wrong place. And then on our last trip, we were leaving Waltz and I found it. So if you are looking for it, it's between Waltz and Casey's. It's just like in a little alcove. And I couldn't believe it. And I was like, I've literally been looking for this for years. And I don't know why I didn't spot it, but I loved it. It's so, so good. Yes, what in the Disney World? We need a GoFundMe so we can find out. That's what we need. We need to set up a GoFundMe and be like, we need to do a group trip to stay in this suite so we can look at the piano. It's very important. And it's just such a beautiful hotel. I was so glad to get to actually go inside on my last trip because when I was there last year, you still had to do line Bertie, and I never managed to get a spot. I'm very sorry, I've got a hair or a fur on my face, which is very distracting. Um, and I finally got to go in there, and I was stunned by the incredible chandelier that has the castle inside it. The scent is amazing. Everything is amazing. And it's one of those things like I've always felt like the theme isn't my favorite. Like I prefer something like the Art of Marvel Hotel where it's a bit more modern. But now I've kind of talked myself into, okay, when it's my 40th birthday, I'm going to have to stay here now. Now, it's probably not going to be the Frozen Suite, but has to be done. So if you've stayed there, do let us know what the experience is like. I have heard mixed experiences. Like I think people love the decor, the restaurants, like everything's great, but that sometimes the service maybe isn't as good as you would expect for the 5-star hotel. But do let us know if you have stayed there, what it's like. Yes, you were there in January 2024 and couldn't even do line Berting. Yes, because that's the thing, isn't it? The first couple of weeks, it was literally guests only. Then it changed to line Bertie for a while. So it was really interesting. It would have been interesting to have actually stayed there when it very first opened because it was so exclusive. And to have so few people in, like, wandering around the hotel, literally only just the guests would have been really interesting way to experience it. And I do remember there was like some controversy when they got rid of that and people were like, how dare you let people in? And I think that's the difficult thing. If you've kind of had it exclusive for a while, getting rid of that, the people I can understand feeling a bit miffed. But on the flip side, no other Disney hotel on earth the general public can't walk into. So they have got to line with everything else. And it's just lovely to pop in there, especially like you can go to the shop, go to the bar. There's like, it's just nice to go and experience the hotel. And I actually think it's clever of Disney because I never had any plans to stay there. And then I visited it and I was like, oh, I think I'm going to have to stay here now for my 40th birthday. So it's actually brilliant marketing as well. It's so good. But I've got some more questions and I think these are all very, very good questions. Sarah also asked, what are my Disney goals? And of course, it's all the parks. Absolutely want to do all the parks. I'd love to do a trip where you do all 3 of the Asian parks in one big trip. I think that would be the dream. If I won the lottery thing, you know, the whole like, if I won the lottery, this is how you know, it would be the Disney private jet tour. I don't know if you've heard about it. I'm obsessed with it. You get to go to all 6 parks around the world, but you get so many cool experiences. So sometimes you'll be in the parks before the parks open, so you literally have the parks to yourself. You'll have meals with Imagineers that built the parks. You get to stay at Skywalker Ranch. Like there's incredible things included. It's something ridiculous, like $150,000. So that's like the lottery win. But it looks like the absolute dream. And there's also things I really like to do Oogie Boogie Bash in Disneyland. It's so different to I've been editing about Halloween Horror Nights, so I've got to stop thinking of Halloween Horror Nights. But it's so different to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. And I love that because there's a real reason to want to go to different parks because it's a Halloween party, but it's completely different. I'd love to do the backstage train tour, which I know sounds very boring, but I'm kind of obsessed with the Disney Railroad. And I'd also like to do some of the special events at Disneyland. So when they do like Star Wars night, it looks incredible. So there's still loads of things to do. I'd like to do some more of the Epcot festivals because I tend to go the same sorts of times of year. So I'd like to branch out, experience more of them. I think that would be really, really fun. And this is something I really like because I'm sure we've all experienced it. People are like, why do you keep going back to Disney? But I'm like, honestly, every time you visit, it's so different because there's so many different ways you can visit and always new things you can do. And no two trips are the same. It's not like, if you go every year, you have the exact same holiday and it's like cut and paste. And I'm like, that's what people don't get. People that aren't Disney people don't realize. It's a totally different experience every single time. Hi, Berlin. How are you doing? It's lovely to see you. Berlin is off to Disneyland Paris very, very soon, which I'm so excited about. And she's just got the Disneyland pass. So many more trips to come, which is so exciting. I love it. You did Halloween Horror Nights in 2017 with a friend. Unreal. Need to do it again. And she did a Run Disney 10K in 2018. The Run Disney events look so good, and I'm really hoping that they will bring them back to Disneyland Paris because the ones in Florida, I'm like, I know they start them at like 5 a.m., but I don't know if I could survive with the heat. So I really hope the Disneyland Paris ones come back because they looked fantastic. And what an amazing achievement as well. And yes, I'm obsessed. I did my first Halloween Horror Nights last year, and now it's becoming part of my personality. I am that person. It's bad. And I keep hearing rumours this year that there's going to be a Terrifier house, and we all know I'm obsessed with the Terrifier films. And I'm like, I really want it to happen, but I'm like, guys, I can't fly to the other side of the world, go to Halloween Horror Nights. It's unreasonable. But the mashup of Halloween Horror Nights and Terrifier will be amazing. So let's hope it does happen. Yes, I'm so glad, Brendan, you're excited for next week. And it's just so nice to be back in the magic in Disneyland Paris. And actually, one of the questions was from Chris, and he said, should the construction wars be a reason to spoil your trip? And I would say absolutely not. I was very nervous going in January because where I was going with my friend, Kirsty Ann, who you would have seen in the vlog series if you've seen it, we went together last time 11 years ago and she hasn't been back since. And I was like, so we booked February last year, almost a year in advance. And I knew there was going to be construction wars, so that wasn't such a problem. But obviously, there's now a lot of construction wars. But then loads of rides were shut, and I was like, "Oh no, it's not going to be the experience I was hoping it would be for her." But actually, like you notice the construction wars like the first time, and then they kind of melt away. And where lots of other things were still open and loads of things for us to do, it didn't hinder our trip whatsoever. And I was really, really happy about that because I was nervous. But I definitely don't think it has to negatively impact your trip at all, which is great. I actually think the bigger disappointment is Big Thunder Mountain being closed. But hopefully, 6 months and it'll be reopened in the summer. That'll be good. But I was very, very impressed. I was like, okay, it didn't impact our trip. It's all good. And then it's the other thing, like I'm sure Kirsty Ann will want to go back again now, which is great because it'll be like once everything's open, World of Frozen's open, everything, I'm sure she'll come back. Which will be amazing. Yes, Louise, you would actually start running if Run Disney came to Disneyland Paris. And that's the thing, they had it for a few years and then they stopped it because of COVID. And then during COVID, they dispersed the team. So they'd literally have to start it from scratch. But I've actually got a question here from Disney Godmother. I don't know if you've ever seen any of her vlogs or you follow her on Instagram, but she has a Run Disneyland Paris page, and she did every single Run Disneyland Paris event, like had the best time. So she's like an expert on this, and I spoke to her about it in the podcast, and it got me obsessed. And I'm like, they need to bring it back. So I really hope they do because they're just such fun events, and it's the same. Like I took up running for a little bit, and I just don't really enjoy it. However, the Run Disney events, the fact that you get to go in backstage areas, I think is really cool. The fact that at like different marker points, you get to meet characters, particularly rare characters. It looks so fun. It's not so much like competitive. I'm sure if you are someone who runs a lot and you have maybe a personal best, you might want to take it more seriously. Whereas I'd be like, I'm going to run for a bit, then meet a character. I think it looks so much fun. Oh, Berlin, I'm so, so glad to hear you figured out where to get your photo pass from. And yeah, that's going to be so, so nice that throughout the whole year of having the Disneyland pass, you're going to be able to have all of the photos from all your trips, which should be awesome. Hi, Chris. Lovely to see you. How are you doing? I love that you turned up in perfect timing for one of your questions, which is fantastic. Hi, Philippa. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so lovely when people pop in, even if they have things planned. So thank you so much. And you said the biggest reason Andrew would visit the Asian parks is to get a new Duffy plush. Seems to be the only place you can get them these days. Yes, I am so ready to dive into Duffy and his pals, and I think this is part of the problem because I know I will buy everything, and the merch is so good in the Asian parks and actually really affordable. So that's good because it means you can get more for your money. But I'm like, how many suitcases are we going to need to take? Because I feel like it's going to be a lot. But the Duffy and all of his pals are amazing. I love gelatoni, obsessed with gelatoni. Can't get enough of it. And yeah, the merch is just next level, and it is all so so cute. And interestingly, when I was in Disneyland Paris, they had these new plushes, and it was like Chip and Dale, Winnie the Pooh, and they were kind of a bit more pastel. And then they had like rosy cheeks, and apparently they are Asian Parks merch. And I was like, it totally makes sense because it's just next level cute. You're like, when you think they're cute enough, they make them even cuter, which is fantastic. Yes, Philippa, you said I'd love to do Run Disney for the backstage areas, but I'm not a runner. I wonder if you can walk. And yes, I have seen people that walk. So, and I think they do. It's like 5K, a half marathon, a marathon, and then for hardcore people like Liz, she does all the events, which I think is incredible. I would literally drop dead. I would not survive. It would be the end of me. But I do love that. Like the 5K will be great because you can walk. You don't have to. I think they do have like a time because obviously the parks have to open to the public, so there is like a you need to be able to complete a 5K within X amount of time, but they do give people enough time to kind of stop to meet characters and stuff because that is a big draw of the events. Billion says, I want the new Chip and Dale ears from Disneyland Paris. It's going to be your first purchase with your annual pass discount, which sounds absolutely perfect. I think that'll be amazing. And yeah, that's the other great thing, isn't it? When you get a bit of discount, it feels like, well, I'm saving money here. So it's a perfectly valid reason to be buying things because I've saved money. That's how I think about it. Zoe's thinking about an annual pass. Yes, I think that's such a good option. I feel like if you go to Disneyland Paris 3 times or more a year and you primarily stay off site, it could be fantastic. Although the good news is they have started to bring back certain periods where they will do annual pass discounts on the hotels. Because one of the sad things was when they got rid of the hotel discount, and I was like, ah, and I love staying on site. But now they are occasionally doing these offers, and you can get really good room rates again. So I think that's such a big draw. So okay, isn't a lot of the longer runs in Paris put out of the parks? Ange says if she comes back, she'll do a run walk with you. Group run. 100%. Okay, Ange, you've got the best idea. We're doing it. We're doing it. They have to do that. But yeah, I've got a feeling you're so right. I feel like the very long runs, like the marathons, probably go Val de Europe and all around that. So it's not so much Disney. So I feel like the 5K is great because you get the best of everything and it's not as long and you still get a medal and you're very accomplished, but you're not, I feel like probably if you're doing the marathon, it's because you're someone that actually is very much into running. So you'll get the Disney taste, but you don't mind that it goes very far away. Whereas I'd be like, no, 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 I need to be in Disney at all times. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like when you're in Disney, we walk 5K within the first couple of hours, surely. We're doing so many K a day. So we're all very well versed. So I think we could all do it and we have to do a group run. It'll be fantastic. Hi, Sunny. This is a great question. Have you ever driven to Disney from the UK and have I got any tips? So I personally haven't driven. And the only reason I haven't is for me to get over to Dover. Is it Dover? It's Dover, wherever the Eurotunnel is. It's probably about a 4-hour drive. And that's the kind of thing that puts me off because I'll typically be on my own, kind of doing 4 hours this side. I'd probably stay in a hotel the night before, actually, and then get the train over. However, I've got lots of friends that's the way they always visit. And it's really, really great because if you get to the train early or even late, they're very flexible with getting you on the next train. And in fact, there's so many trains a day. It's fantastic, I think. I love the fact that you can take as much luggage as you want. All the hotels on site at Disney have free parking. So I actually think it's a really fantastic way to visit. I do know that there are some rules and regulations, like you have to have certain things on your car, like certain signs and whatnot, to make sure it's kind of compliant with EU law. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, I don't have lots of tips. I've never done it, and it's one of those things I would like to experience, but I'm just nervous of how long it would take me to get from here. The other side isn't too bad, and I've heard that it's pretty much one straight road. There is a toll road, but it's not too expensive. There's lots of service stations along the way if you want to have rest breaks or get drinks, snacks, food, anything like that. So it seems like on the French side, it's really, really good. So if you are fancying doing it, I definitely think it's worthwhile, and it can be one of the most affordable ways to travel. I think, 'cause the more people you have in the car, I think you just pay one price for the car, so it's fantastic. This is great news. Driving is so easy. The Eurotunnel is great. Tolls can be contactless, and roads are easy to drive, which is great. Zoe says it takes 9 hours to drive there, but so easy and comfortable. That's amazing, and I love that you're dedicated. That is amazing. 9 hours, and it's funny, isn't it? Because in the US, like doing a long drive. So when I was 18, I did a 10,000-mile road trip around the US. I did a massive circle. I was not driving. But some days we would do a 12-hour drive, and that was just to get to a little bit further into one state. Whereas, like in the UK, you could literally drive from like Portsmouth, where I am, all the way to the top of Scotland, and it wouldn't take that long. So I do love it. I'm like, oh, 4 hours feels like such a chore. Whereas, like in other countries, that's nothing, absolutely nothing. It's very, very quick. €24 for a toll is not bad at all, I don't think, either, which is fantastic. David, hi. This is fantastic. 22 of you are going to Disneyland Paris in April. That is amazing. That is next level amazing coordination as well, I'd like to point out, because it's hard enough to when you plan when there's like 5 or 6 people. So 22 people, that's like a massive high five. That's really, really impressive. And is it like a big family trip, or is it groups of friends? Is it a school trip? What's going on? I want to know. How are 22 people going together? And there's going to be so many great memories made, which is fantastic. Travel with the Thompsons say the biggest tip: drive on the other side of the road. Very good point. Yeah, don't get out of the Eurotunnel and forget, and then just be like, That's weird. People passing me either side, going, what are they doing? But it's really, really easy to drive when in France, which is fantastic, isn't it? I think that's the thing. It looks so simple, and the fact that it is kind of just like one road, you can't really get lost. Lots of comfort breaks if you need. I think it's great, and like I said, I think it's a super affordable way to visit. And for me, being able to pack whatever you fancy, and also kind of be on your own schedule, because you can plan which times you want to do the trains, because there's so many of them. Whereas when you're flying or with the Eurostar, you are limited to what flight times or train times there are. This is perfect, and, yeah, if you've got some good music on, I think it's very, very nice to be driving all the way there and, jamming out and getting ready for Disney, which is fantastic. Well, I've actually got a really good question, from Maily Mouse, which is asking about Disney World, and they're a family of 4 visiting, and can they use one magic band for things like the dining plan? So the great news is there are some things that you could use one magic band for. So stuff like photo pass and dining, because you would only need one person to tap for those things. However, for everything else, such as scanning into the parks or scanning into multi-pass, single pass, things like that, you would have to have an individual magic band for everyone. So what you could do if you didn't want everyone to have a magic band is one person have a magic band just for photo pass and for what did I say the other thing was? Magic band for multi-pass. Oh, and the plan. If you've got the dining plan, and then everyone else could just use the plastic card version or on the app. I think the plastic card is much easier. And if you have like a little lanyard, Chris very kindly gifted me a great lanyard. So it was one that I can clip to like a belt hoop and have in my pocket, and then just get it out when I needed to. I think that's so much easier than having to faff about with the app. So I do love that as an option. But yes, you don't have to all have a magic band, but you won't be able to do everything with just one magic band. It's only certain things. Oh, this is great to hear. So Stephen Andrew said there's a Premier Inn in Dover, on the A20, which is great for an overnight stay before getting the train. You could be in the park for 10 a.m. if you get the 5:20 train. That's amazing, isn't it? You can super maximize the amount of time you're in Disney doing it that way. That's incredible. David says their amazing big trip is a big family trip. The oldest person is 62 and the youngest is 2. It's going to be chaos, you imagine. But what an amazing way to make memories together. That's going to be so fantastic. And the fact that there's so many generations, and that's what I think is really nice about Disney, is that like it does get passed down. I remember when I used to work in the Disney store, a lady came in, she was quite elderly, and her first great grandchild had just been born. And she said she wanted to get a piece of merchandise or clothing that was from Snow White because that was the first film she ever saw in the cinema as a child. So she wants to gift her great grandchild something from Snow White. And I'm like, that's the really nice thing, isn't it? That there's this love that's passed down. And then you can do these amazing family trips and all have the best time together. So that's going to be awesome. Oh, hi, Mabel. It's lovely to see you. I'm so excited for your trip. It's going to be fantastic. And yeah, Disney World is a dream. It's going to be so much fun. When are you going? We need to know. We need to know the details. I'm very excited for all the countdowns. And I love that so many people here have countdowns, which is so much fun. Something I will mention is that we are doing a Most Magical meetup in London, July 19th this year, which is a Saturday. I'm very excited. It's going to be so amazing to get to meet people in person. And I'm probably also going to do one in Disneyland Paris this year. So I've got 3 Disneyland Paris trips booked. I've got a May trip, a November trip, and a September, October trip booked. So I'm sure we're going to do that as well. So if people are around, do come meet up because it'll be so much fun. And yeah, I just think it's going to be the best to meet face to face. So I'm putting it out there just so we're all aware. And there is a little Facebook event group for the London meetup, and that's going to have all the details in it, what we're going to be doing, the plans, the timings, everything like that. So it'll be so much fun. Louise said we had a big family moon in Disneyland Paris, 16 of us. We had a great time, but a tip would be to not worry about pleasing everyone. Everyone is in control of their own enjoyment. I think that is the way to do it, particularly with big groups, because there's always going to be like rides that some people want to do, other people don't, or restaurants, stuff like that. So I think being flexible and being like, okay, if we want to split up for this ride, some people can go on this, some people can go on this, is perfect because yeah, otherwise it's so stressful. Trying to get everyone on the same page all the time. Oh, Zoe, you're also in Disneyland Paris in November. This is going to be amazing. Like, it's going to happen at some point that our paths are going to cross. So I think I am there the 24th to the 26th of November. I think I'm just missing Ange and Steve, who are also going to be there in November. So hopefully some people will be there at the same time and we will meet up. It'll be fantastic. And Berlin, you're still working on your visits for after summer, and it all depends on the schedule for your next school year, which totally makes sense. But yeah, it'll be amazing. One day we will our paths will cross. I'm sure of it. Hi Sarah, lovely to see you. I will put a link on my Instagram to the Facebook event group. But if you go to just the Most Magical Guides Facebook page, you will be able to find the event on there. And that is where the group is. But yeah, after this live stream, I'll put that up so people can go and find it if they want. And I'm so excited that you're going to be coming. Sarah's actually coming all the way over from Germany. It's going to be absolutely perfect. It's going to be so nice to have a long weekend break. And it's going to be wonderful to meet you again. You will have seen Sarah in my Disney World vlog series because we did the meetup in Hollywood Studios, which was a dream. It was such a highlight of the trip. And then on my final night, we got to meet up again. We saw Fantasmic. We saw a wonderful world of animation. I cried, of course. It was amazing. It was the best final night. It's so good. Berlin says, in summer for your birthday, you want to go for a week. 3 days in Disney, a day in Paris, and then 3 more days at Disney. Oh, that's going to be amazing. That is the dream, isn't it? Because getting to combine Disneyland Paris and Paris will be perfect, and especially birthday trips. And I know you are a pro at birthday trips, so that sounds like a dream. Yes, Steve and Ange are going to be there from the 26th of November. So we're going to kind of cross paths possibly on the final day. But hopefully it'll work. Hopefully it'll work. It'll be fantastic. But I've got some more questions, so I'm going to try and I don't want to miss anyone else. We're going to keep going with the questions. Jamie, who has an amazing podcast called the Jamie and Stephen podcast, which I've been a guest on, and basically what they do is they go back and they rewatch Disney films. They've started from the very beginning and they're going in order, and then they do a deep dive into like really fun facts, notes about the cast, the music, and then their general opinions. And it's such a hoot every single time I've been a guest. It's been hilarious. But her question was, "Who is your secret animated crush?" Which I think is a hilarious question because I find it almost impossible to answer because I'm like, I don't have any crushes on animated characters. And I feel like that is an outlier because I did see I don't know if you saw there was a big trend on TikTok last year of people that had cakes and they would put in their like unusual crushes, and almost every cake was full of animated characters. And I'm like, why don't I have this? Why have I don't fancy animated characters. What's happening? I've missed out on this memo. So then I was trying to think really hard and I was like, I can't think. Although something that is very obvious to me is the Beast is significantly more attractive than the Prince. And if I was Belle, I would have been like, "Can we get the witch back? Because I'd rather him go back to the Beast, please." I do remember thinking that, and but I'd love to know what your animated secret crushes are. And I also love the idea of a secret crush. Like I would be embarrassed to admit this, but this is my animated crush. Which I think is so funny. So if you have a secret animated crush, let us know. It'll be amazing. Okay. Chris has also asked the best way to beat the Disney blues without having another trip booked, because we all know the only way to really not suffer is to know you're going to be going back to Disney. But I think some things I like to do is I like to watch a lot of vlogs because I think the great thing is, even if you're not there, getting to see other people there and see their joy and their happiness and then also what they're doing. So I love to see, oh my god, I've never been to that restaurant, I need to put that on my list, or that bar looks really, really fun, or they've done like a special experience or something like that. Next time I'm going, I want to do this, this, and this. So it kind of helps ease it. And I think that's the thing. Like, it's so horrible. People that haven't been to Disney and haven't had the Disney blues don't know what it's like. I saw a TikTok the other day of a girl who went to her first ever Disney World trip, first ever Disney trip. And she came home and her TikTok was her crying, talking about how much she misses it. And she got so much hatred from people being like, "Oh my god, what's wrong with you?" But I'm like, if you haven't been, guys, you don't understand because it genuinely is so hard. But I do think vlogs help massively, and I know that's something I do. I watch a lot of people's vlogs, and I'm also lucky that when I come back from trips, because I edit for so long. So like, when I came back from Disney World, I was editing up until mid-December. So I kind of stayed in that Disney bubble because I was kind of getting to relive the trip, which is so fortunate. So it's really nice to watch those memories back. But yeah, I think that's the best way. Watch other people's happiness and then make notes of things you want to do that you see them do. Berlin, that's what you do. You watch vlogs in between. It helps with the blues. Hi, Michelle. Lovely to see you. You said Frozen Land will open sometime in 2026. But when do you think the Lion King part will be open? Hmm. I have a controversial opinion. I think it will not be open for a very long time because Disneyland Paris is notoriously slow. So we know World of Frozen will have taken at least 7 years to have been built by the time it opens. So I would imagine it probably won't open until like the mid 2030s, which sounds so futuristic. And don't do what I did. Don't do what I did. When they recently announced the hotel that they keep teasing and then it kind of goes away and then it comes back. And they were like saying when it was going to open. And then I terribly in my head worked out how old I would be when it opened. And then I had an existential crisis for about a week. So don't think about that. We're not thinking about how old we'll be when the Lion King land opens, but I do think it will take a while. And it's one of those interesting things. Like the American parks tend to build things quite quickly. Disneyland Paris tends to build things much slower than anywhere else. The fact we're still waiting for this awning at Casey's Corner, it's been over a year, is wild. I think we need to get DIY SOS in if there's a problem. So I feel like we're going to be waiting a very, very long time, but I think it'll be worth the wait. I think it's going to be really beautiful, really stunning. I'm wondering if the new hotel will have a tie-in with it, or if it will be Frozen, or maybe it'll be a completely different theme, or if it will even happen because apparently they keep being talked about and then it disappears and then it comes back. But Lion King Land seems to be going ahead, which would be fantastic. But I'm loving that a lot of people are saying vlogs definitely help. Zoe, you're right. Food vlogs help you choose where to eat 100%, which is always so good. Because that's the thing, there's so many restaurants, but obviously some are better than others. So it's definitely worthwhile. That's actually one of the things I've got written down on the mistakes people make when they go to Disney. And it's not looking up or researching the food, because I see so many people who are like wandering around the parks, and then they're like, we're hungry, and they go, there is a restaurant, and they will just go to it. And I'm like, oh, if it ends up being a good restaurant, perfect. But sometimes it's not going to be the best value or the type of food you enjoy. So kind of going in knowing these are the type of restaurants we'd like to hit up just makes life a lot easier, I think. Hi, Jill. Thank you so much for joining us. It's lovely to see you. I'm so sorry to hear it is buffering. So I hope that resolves itself soon. Berlin says you're thinking about how old you'll be by then. That's the problem, isn't it? You start thinking, oh no, it's going to be so fun. Sunny asks, have you ever been to Disneyland in Tokyo? And if so, do you have a preference in which Disneyland you like? Unfortunately, oh, has the sound gone for everyone? Or can anyone still hear me? Oh, okay. Hopefully it's all good. But I've never ever been to Tokyo, and it's the one I'm most desperate to visit. It looks incredible. Everyone says Disney Sea is probably the best Disney park in the absolute world. So I am so excited to go, but it has not happened yet. And I'd love to do a trip where you do all three of the Asian parks in one big trip. I've actually heard that they're much more affordable than somewhere like Disney World. And people have said if you do a 2 week Disney World trip, you could easily do 2 weeks and visit all three of the Asian parks, and it would be cheaper, which is incredible because you're going to completely different countries. You'd have to do a lot of flights. So it's amazing to think that that is more affordable. So it's an absolute dream. So I want to do it. But have you been? What do you think? I love hearing people's experiences, particularly in Tokyo, because it looks next level awesome. And now there's Fantasy Springs. It looks amazing. The queues to get in aren't so bad, but the whole land looks amazing. Berlin, you'll take some pics from cases for me. That will be fantastic. So I really, really hope that the awning will be completed soon because it's taking too long. It's just ridiculous. It's bonkers. Okay, I'm glad that hopefully some people the sound issue is resolved and the buffering. Some other people are still having issues, so hopefully that will sort itself out. But we've got some more fantastic questions. In fact, Sarah, who we were talking to earlier, who's coming over from Germany for the meetup, she asked, "What do I prioritize when booking a trip, and like to rank them?" And I think this is such a fantastic question. And I've put it's very hard because I feel like all of these things tie into each other, but I would say probably comfort is number one. So it would be stuff like if I'm going to do a long haul flight, I'll probably pay to upgrade to premium economy just because it's a little bit more comfortable, um, and things like that. Or like I might do some table service meals because I love the experience of being able to have a like a sit down meal, rest your feet, soak that up. So then my next thing would be the budget. That's the second thing. So I'm like, let's balance the comfort and the budget. But the thing that's great is I think some areas you can splurge in and some areas you can save in. And in fact, on Wednesday, that's literally what the video is about. I've done one where I break down the cost of my last Disney World trip, how much everything cost me, areas that I splurged, but also how you can save in all of the areas as well, and like what splurges are worth it, what ones aren't. Um, so yeah, I think it's balancing comfort and then the budget. Then I've said proximity. So if I can stay on site at Disney, particularly like Disneyland Paris, Disney World, that's always my preference, just because it's just so much easier to get everywhere. And also, if you want to take that break, which I love the afternoon break, just makes it a bit easier. The one place I would say that I don't kind of recommend staying on site is Disneyland because there's so many hotels around. But again, proximity would still be important. So I want to be able to walk back there and be able to take a break. And then I think the final thing I prioritize is new experiences or new things to do so that each trip it just feels a bit more interesting because you're getting to do something you've never done before as well as all of the things you love. But I think that's a fantastic question because there's always things to try and balance. Oh, this is great. So Andrew Steve say, do you know if you buy magic bands in Disney World oh no, can you use magic bands in Disney World if brought in Disneyland? And I've got a feeling the answer is no. I've got a feeling that one way around it works and the other way around it doesn't. So it might be if you bought them in Disneyland, you can use them in Disney World, but if you bought them in Disney World, you can't use them in Disneyland. But I do know they used to be flexible, so you could use them in the parks because they also used to have the bi-coastal annual pass, which no longer exists. And I've got a feeling now the magic bands don't work in both parks, which is really, really difficult. So that's unhelpful because it's like I would like to be able to use this multiple places. Sunny said Disneyland Tokyo wasn't so great as it wasn't really themed well, but Disney Sea was unbelievable. It's the best experience I've ever had. It's definitely worth going. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, Disney Sea, everyone has the best things to say about it. Everyone's just like, it's absolutely incredible. And I just love that it's so unique. It's very, very different to the other parks. And I'm so glad you had an amazing experience there. And I'm just so desperate to visit because it just looks next level incredible. And the only reason I haven't visited is because there's not really vegan options. And I'm like, I don't think I could do 2 weeks just eating snacks out of my suitcase. I think I would really struggle. And I'm hoping maybe they'll start to do a few, because even if there's a few options, at least you know, even if you're eating in similar restaurants most days, at least you've got something to eat. But I think at the moment there's like one vegan curry in one park in Tokyo. And obviously it's not really realistic to keep going to the same restaurant multiple times a day. So once that changes, I'll be there. It'll be amazing. Hi Tamsin, lovely to see you. Thank you for joining. Have you ever or would you ever do split flights to save money one stop each way? So I haven't done that yet. But something that I think is great is if you fly to Dublin, you can do the US immigration in Dublin and it's super, super quick. And then you fly into Orlando and you don't have to do all of that. And I think that could be a really great way of doing a split stay because it's pretty seamless, pretty easy. And it could be one of those things that if you really want to be cautious, you could fly to Dublin the day before or even spend a few days in Dublin because it's amazing, then head out. And I think it's just really nice that you've got the added benefit of going through US immigration because sometimes that can be very, very long. But I've not done that yet. But if anyone has done a split stay, not a split stay, sorry, a split flight, what did you think? Because sometimes it can be a really great way to save money. I have done it on other flights in the US. So I've flown to Las Vegas before, and I think one time we stopped in Atlanta, another time we stopped in like Charlotte. Um, and they were quite simple. There wasn't a lot of time between the flight. It felt like there was a lot of time between the flights, but once you went through immigration, collected your bags, checked back in, and got back to the gate, it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. But I don't think all flights you have to do that. Some of them you don't have to collect your cases and do all of that. They will do it for you. So I think it just depends on what combination of things you're doing. But it can definitely be a great way to save money. Um, and yeah, but I do think the Dublin option is fantastic because that way you're also getting immigration out of the way and it's just smooth sailing and super, super quick, which is fantastic. Okay, so Chris also asked, now that I'm really getting into Marvel, what are my 3 top Marvel films and my least favourite? And this is a difficult question because I have no memory for film or TV or books. It's very weird. When I have finished something, it's like the Men in Black come and they'll erase it from my memory. Sometimes I might remember key moments, but mostly like I've watched things a second time and then got to the very end and been like, that feels vaguely familiar, and then realised I've seen it before, but I've watched the entire film. It's taken me the entire film to realise. But it's weird because stuff like locations, I can remember everything. Like I've been to Amsterdam once. If I went there again and someone went, "Oh, I heard you that shop you talked about," I would know exactly how to get there. I just like directions. I have an amazing memory. Films, none at all. So the films I've picked typically are ones that I've seen more recently because I started watching Marvel films probably about 2 years ago, but it's just taken me a very, very long time to work my way through them. Um, but very recently, just before I went to Disneyland Paris, I did Infinity War and Endgame finally. And I think they're incredible. I think they're incredible pieces of cinema. It's so worth kind of having seen the 23 films that come before to get to Endgame and see all those storylines converge. It genuinely is epic. And I actually think the portals scene is probably one of the best things I've ever seen on screen. And I never thought I'd be that person because I was never really into superheroes or comics. But then once Disney kind of had Avengers Campus and we're doing a lot more with Marvel, I was like, let me just see if I can get into it. And now I love it. Absolutely love it. So they're two of my favorites because I just think they have the scale, they have the amazing cast, incredible storylines. And then I found it hard to pick just one other because I love Doctor Strange, the first Doctor Strange film. He's probably my favorite Marvel character. I'm obsessed with him. But I also love Black Panther. And interestingly, before I started watching Marvel, I watched Black Panther independently just because I thought it looked like a really great film. So I didn't get all of the references to other things because I hadn't seen anything. So I absolutely love Black Panther. I think T'Challa is one of my favourite characters. But one film that I did not enjoy was Ant-Man and the Wasp. In fact, I didn't finish it. I got halfway through, maybe not even halfway through, and I thought, I'm knocking this on the head. I'm just going to Wikipedia the synopsis and move on because I think that's the interesting thing because there is so much Marvel. I do feel like some things are going to resonate more than others. And I do feel like I was very much like I have to endure and push through everything. And then because Chris knows a lot, he was like, if there's something you don't like, just skip it. Just read the synopsis, move on. Because there's no point, you'll kind of stop yourself moving forward if you keep watching films that you don't like. So I was like, that makes a very good point. I haven't dived into a lot of the TV shows yet. I saw Moon Knight independently because I was like, I don't think that kind of links to any of the other Marvel things, so it's fine. That's very weird, but I kind of enjoyed it. I've just started watching One Division, obsessed already. Absolutely love that. Can't wait to see more. But now I'm kind of up to Shang-Chi. Well, I've heard good things about that actually. I've heard it's one of those films that no one ever talks about. But then when I say to people, "Oh, is it okay?" They're all like, "It's good." Like I don't know why normal people don't talk about it. But I'm very excited that I feel like I've got to a point now where I can start watching Marvel films in the cinema because I know what's going on. So I did watch Captain America: Brave New World last week, and it was really, really great to actually see it in the cinema. Because that's the one thing I wish I'd seen Infinity War and Endgame in the cinema, and I feel like I've missed out and it's very rude. And I can't believe I've missed out on that. Berlin, I know you're doing the same. You're working your way through Marvel. You finished Captain America Winter Soldier today, so you're excited to finish the next movies. And yes, I think it's great because it's nice when you go to Avengers Campus and you have a bit more idea of the storyline and what's going on and things you can say to the characters if you meet them. So I absolutely love it, and I've properly really got into it. I love it. Stephen Ange say Ant-Man Quantumania is terrible. Yes, I've heard this. And that's the thing. I'm like, if I did not like Ant-Man and the Wasp, there's no way I'm liking that. I might just have to completely skip it. Brave New World was okay, but ending was poor. One Division is easily the best TV show. Yeah, I didn't mind Brave New World. Like, I think I think it's difficult because I feel like there hasn't been a lot of great Marvel. I feel like Endgame was like the peak, and then they've had films that have been okay or good since then, but there's been none that are like, oh my god, that's incredible. I did love Wakanda Forever. That was really, really good. And again, I saw that in the cinema, but it's because I'd seen Black Panther, I was like, okay, I can go see that on the day it was released. Again, there would have been like some details I would have probably not realised I'd missed out on because I hadn't seen all the other things. But I did love Wakanda Forever, which was very sad though, very sad, very sad. Like I'm one of those people, as you've probably noticed from the vlogs, that cries easily. Music, film, TV, adverts, books, cry all of that. The first like 5-10 minutes of Wakanda Forever, I was like, because I always think in the cinema, everyone's facing forward and no one's looking at anyone. So I'm like, if you're crying in the cinema, no one really notices, it's not a problem. I was crying so much, I was starting to make noises. I was like, well, you've got to rein it in. You've got to rein it in. But it's very, very amazingly done. And it's just so sad that Chadwick Boseman passed away. And, but I think they kind of did a great tribute to him in that film. But it's very sad. If you haven't seen it, come with tissues because it's very sad. Oh, you're off to see The Monkey this week. Hope it's good. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great. I saw The Monkey on Monday and I saw Companion on Tuesday, and I definitely preferred Companion more. The Monkey I think was fun, and it was good because it did have some humor in it as well. It's kind of got the scares and the humor, but it wasn't great. It's one of those adverts where the trailer's kind of the best part. But I hope you enjoy. I'd love to hear what you think about it because obviously everyone has different feelings about different things. So I'd love to know if you liked it. Last night I saw The Brutalist as well, which was very long. It has an intermission in it. It's that long, but it was very good. I've been trying to go to the cinema once a week, every week this year. And then some weeks you've been super busy. So I haven't been able to go. And then this week, well, in the space of about 8 days, I went 4 times. So I've made up for it, I think, which is good. Okay, let's have a little look at some more of the questions. This is a really great question. One of the questions is, what is a Disney mistake I've made? And I think these two kind of go hand in hand. And it is trying to do park open to park close and not taking breaks. And it's that thing of, I always used to be a park open to park close person. And every day I would be in absolute agony and I'd be miserable by the end of the day. And if you're with other people, you're bickering, you're arguing, it's not great. No one's going home feeling magical. They're feeling in pain and annoyed. And I was forced to start taking breaks when I got the plantar fasciitis, because I was very much with the belief, like, if you're not in the parks, then you're missing out. Doing the breaks has revolutionised the trips. And now I fit so much more into the trips and I'm in such a better mood and I'm not in pain. And yeah, I will never go back to trying to stay in the parks for ages and ages and ages. It just doesn't work for me. And I think it's difficult because I do know, because I was that person who was like, if you're not there, you're wasting time. Like, why aren't you in the parks? But like, you can fit so much into your day. But if you're ending every day in agony, like I've had it before where I've gone back to the hotel room and it's taken me like 3-4 hours to get to sleep because my feet are in so much pain I can't sleep. And I'm like, this is not the one. So then you're tired, you're in agony, you're not in the best mood. So that was definitely something I've learned. And it was interesting that it took me kind of being forced to have a break to realize how amazing it was. And now I can never go back. The break is the best part of the day, in the sense that I know I've had an amazing morning. The afternoon, when it's kind of busy and hot, I'm going to have a little rest, and then I'm going to have so much energy in the evening. So it gives you such a boost, and then you just have the best day every day, which is amazing. And that's the other thing. I would often not get to park close because I'd be so tired and in so much pain. So I didn't get to experience the parks in the evening a lot. So now having that break and being like, okay, we're going to go back and have a great time in the evening, because the parks are so different in the evenings. You can really miss out if you don't get both, especially like some of the outside rides. It's a completely different experience at night. The parks look very different at night. They're super beautiful. So you definitely want to have that experience, and like the fireworks and the shows and stuff. So trying to kind of push through doesn't always work. So I've learned that lesson and I will not do it anymore. And now I preach to everyone, like, have the break, have the break. If you can take the break, even if it's like a sit down meal or watching some shows in the park, it can help massively, which is really, really good. So oh, this is a great question from Zoe. Have you had a chance to see the new nighttime show yet? And I haven't, unfortunately. I left Disneyland Paris the day it was premiering. And again, that's just because we'd booked that trip almost a year in advance, and they hadn't announced there was going to be a new show. Because if we'd have known, we probably would have done different dates. But it was one of those things. However, I'm going back in May, and I cannot wait to see it. It looks absolutely incredible. I am trying to avoid all spoilers. I'm like, I don't want to see anything. I'm just going to go and experience it. But it looks so good from what I have seen, and I love that Disneyland Paris used the drones, the use of drones, and the fact that this time you've now got the projections down Main Street. And that's something I really like and I'm really curious about, is that I feel like with this show, watching it from different places, you'll get a completely different experience. And then that's really nice because every time you visit, you can do it a different way. And I think that's going to be really fantastic. Oh, Michelle says Skechers foamies are brilliant for painful feet. And this is the interesting thing. I used to love Skechers, but Skechers are what gave me plantar fasciitis. So I think it probably is dependent on people's feet, because I know some people will recommend certain trainers and then I've tried them on and I'm like, oh my God, it's so uncomfortable. And then things I love, other people don't get on with. Um, so I've had to kind of switch from Skechers. The one type of Skechers that I wear day to day are the arch fit ones. I find them really, really good. And sometimes if I'm doing Disneyland Paris, because it's a shorter trip, I'll do that. Disney World, I'll try and do a training that's kind of more designed for plantar fasciitis. But I'm so glad, like, when you hear recommendations from people, because it's great to know these, and these are good ones, and then you can try them on and see which ones work for you. So yeah, love that. It's so, so good. Steve and Ange say Tales of Magic is amazing. We've seen it once on the premiere day, and you can't wait to see it from Main Street in July. Yes, I think that's a great thing, isn't it? Getting to see it from different viewpoints is fantastic, and one of the big like draws of it, because the fact that you can visit the park and every single time the fireworks show be a unique experience is great. So I can't wait to experience it. I think it's going to be so good, and I do feel like Disneyland Paris are definitely a leader when it comes to entertainment. I've always felt like Disneyland Paris is the testing ground for the US parks. So like we had Premier Access before they started doing kind of Genie Plus and now Multipass, and kind of testing like how it works, what works well. Um, the drones, obviously, they've been trying in Disneyland Paris. Now they've taken them to Disney World in Disney Springs. So it definitely feels like Disneyland Paris is at the forefront of experimentation, but it's great because we kind of get to test things out. I think the difficulty is Disneyland Paris and Disney World are very different. So I think Premier Access works really well in Disneyland Paris. I do think Multipass works really well in Disney World, but it's much harder for people to understand. And I think that's the stumbling block for a lot of people. And it's kind of like if you don't know strategies and whatnot, you might not get the most out of it, which is really, really frustrating. So yeah, I do love that Disneyland Paris is the testing ground, and all of the shows, parades, nighttime shows are always incredible. I think they're so good at their entertainment. So yeah, I can't wait to go back. Can't wait for the music festival season. I think that's going to be absolutely incredible. I'm so looking forward to a new parade because I feel like the past couple of years with Dream and Shine Brighter and a Million Splashes of Colour, we've had amazing parades. So I'm hoping Minnie's Magical Main Street. I is it? I don't know what the full title was, but I feel like that's going to be a parade. I feel like it's going to be in the same vein as those previous two parades, where you kind of have the parade, but then they're on the stages in the Castle Hub as well, which I think has revolutionised the parades in Disneyland Paris. I'd actually prefer if we just had those sorts of parades year round, and if we get rid of Stars on Parade, I wouldn't be mad about it, or at least we updated Stars on Parade. But having multiple parades throughout the day, and when they have the show in the middle of it, I think it's fantastic. So I'm all for that. It'll be amazing. And Stephen and also say if, and it's a big if, but if there is ever a third gate, what theme would you like for a park? I'd like to see an Epcot style park with food festivals. I think that's really interesting. That would be really, really good, and I think people would be very drawn to that. And it'd be so interesting to see if would they have the same countries, would they have different countries? That would be really, really cool. I, of course, would love it to be a villains land. Whole theme park. I know we're getting a villains land in Magic Kingdom. I always was hoping they were going to do a whole new park that was going to be villains because they've got enough scope. Because think about how many Disney villains there are, how many different lands you could have themed to different villains. I think it would be incredible. So I will tolerate a land, but I'd love a whole park. But I think what would be interesting as well is if they could incorporate some of the films that haven't been incorporated into any other parks. That's something I think that's great about the Lion King land, is that it's going to be so unique to Disneyland Paris because we are starting to see a lot of similar lands in a lot of the parks, which is great if you don't get to visit other parks. But then it's less reason to visit the other parks because if you're like, oh well, I can do that, and that's the thing. Like World of Frozen, I'm so excited to see what it looks like. However, the ride is one that I've been on, and I love the ride. I think it's really, really cute. However, it's not one I would wait hours and hours and hours to go on. So it'll be fun to experience the land, but the ride isn't the draw for me because it's something I've done. So it will be great to have something unique, and I'd love it if they had a new park, if they had things that no one else had, because I think that would be such a big draw. And I do think with with Universal opening in the UK, do we think that will push Disneyland Paris to open a third park? Because this Universal Park is going to take a lot of customers away. So what do we think? And it would be interesting because then it would be like, what would they do? What would the park be like? Zoe, you'd love a Disney Villains Park. I think people would love it because there's just so many things you could do, so many great themed rides you could have, and there's such a vast array of villains. Because that's the thing, like every Disney film has a villain. So as many heroes and stories we have villains. So they could do so much with it. And of course, you could have like Maleficent's castle as the big like focus of the park. Like it would be amazing. So I'd love it if they did that, but I don't know if they will. Maybe they're just happy with it being a land, but the rumor was always that they were gonna do a full park. I don't know if because of budgeting they've just reduced it down to a land, but maybe Disneyland Paris will shake that up. Maybe we'll have it. But I don't know if they'd think a whole park would be too dark. But I'm like, people love it. People love it. Give the people what they want. It'll be amazing. So I should actually probably talk about some of the talking points because so far I've completely bypassed that. Some of the ways I think that people ruin their own trip or things that I have done under planning. And I know we've mentioned this before, so stuff like not looking at what restaurants are available because the worst thing you can do is get hungry and then just see somewhere and eat there. And it's either not very good, or if it is good, it's a really long queue, or perhaps you even can't get in. So it's the worst. So if you know, like, these are a few places I would like to eat, then you're ready to go. You know where the best food is at, and it's going to make your trip much better. And actually, I had a question from Abigail, and she asked, "What is my favorite food in Disneyland Paris?" So, a quick rundown. I love the vegan shawarma from Super Diner. I think that's a hidden gem restaurant. I think because it's at the back of Avengers Campus, a lot of people miss over it, but it's so good. The lentil curry from Colonel Hathie's, and you can also get the amazing onion bhajis. That's really good. Vegan fish and chips in Toad Hall. They've also got these new vegan chicken nuggets that I need to try, but I've not been able to try them yet. But I love that there's two options there, which is fantastic. I love the chakalaka in Hakuna Matata. Also love the vegetarian burger in Annette's, and I think that experience in Annette's is amazing as well. The fact that some people are on roller skates, that they do these kind of dance parties every half an hour or so, absolutely love it. I think one of my favourite sit-down meals is at Auberge de Cendrillon. It's the Princess Dining meal, but the food is amazing as well as the experience. And I also really loved Waltz. The last time we went, the food was so good, the service was good. Manhattan is also a restaurant I like a lot. The last time I went, they've changed the dessert, and I did not like the dessert. And I think I probably won't go back until they change the dessert. But I do think Manhattan is an amazing restaurant. If you like Italian food, it's got an amazing setting, great dining. So I'd highly recommend that. But that's the other thing I wanted to talk about with underplanning is if you are someone that has any dietary needs, you have to do research in advance, especially in the international parks. You can't expect to walk in and then be able to cater to you. You need to know which restaurants will be able to cater for you. The US is much better. The chef will come out, they can make accommodations for you. It's The US is very used to doing that, whereas if you go to the international park, it's not so common. So just be aware of that. I think the downside massively with underplanning is you end up wasting a lot of time and money. And it's just like if you don't know, I always think even if you know like 10% more with tips, your experience elevates massively. Because even if it's just like how to do things, like if you want to buy multipass, how do I use it the best? You get such an edge over other people because so many people don't do any research at all. And the thing is, all of us here are obviously people that love the planning because we watch vlogs, we watch planning videos, and it makes such a difference. And kind of just turning up and hope for the best. I know the first time I went to Disneyland properly, I did a day trip there when I was 18, but then for my 30th birthday we went, and I didn't do much research into Disneyland. I was like, oh, I know that it's not as big as Disney World. It's more like Disneyland Paris. We'll just go and see what happens. We had 3 days there. We did less than half the things that were available. And we ended up being there during grad nights. So it was very busy. And it's all of those things that if I'd taken a little time to look up, are there public holidays or events going on? And also like what rides to hit up first thing in the morning or stuff like that, we would have fitted so much more into our trip, and maybe even if not visited the dates we visited. So we kind of just wasted a lot of time. We're in like queues for ages because I didn't really know the best way to do things. So I literally just walked into the park kind of blind, and we were just walking around and doing whatever we came across, which is not a great plan. It's not a great plan. It wasn't a good plan. So I think doing even a little bit of research makes such a difference. So I would never do that again. And like I say, you end up wasting a lot of money as well because it is stuff like buying bottles of water and then it's like $5 a bottle, or paying out for Premier Access if you don't need it. If you're going for multiple days, you probably don't need Premier Access. And it's that thing of Disney trips are expensive enough as they are. You don't need to be wasting money. So again, avoid the underplanning. do a little bit of research, even if it's a tiny amount, and it will make such a difference to the trip. Um, and I also think that underplanning leads you to missing out on a lot because you might not know that there's shows that go on at certain times of day or stuff like Disneyland Paris. If you don't know there's a dragon underneath the castle, you wouldn't necessarily stumble across it. And yeah, it's so easy just to miss out on little details. And then, like I said, you end up standing in queues for ages. And that's actually how I ended up starting most magical guides. Is I love the planning, and particularly Disney World, because Disney World takes so much planning. And before trips, I probably plan. I mean, I normally book trips about 15 to 18 months in advance, and I will spend that entire time doing the research, looking everything up. And I loved it. So then I would go out to Disney World and meet people. And I remember distinctly meeting a couple who were there on their honeymoon, which what an incredible way to celebrate. But because they didn't have access to the information, they were like, oh, we waited 3 hours to go on this ride. And then we wanted to eat in this restaurant. And it was fully booked. We went to another restaurant. It was a 2 hour wait. And I just felt so bad for them because the honeymoon is such a special experience that you want everything to be seamless. And I'm lucky that because I am obsessed with the planning and like literally do thousands of hours of research, hundreds of documents for every single trip. It's psychotic. It's like, in horror films where the serial killer has like things pinned on the wall. I'm like that, but with Disney trips. It's unhinged. But and I just felt so bad because I was like, oh, if they even had, like I say, like 10% more knowledge, their experience would have been so much better. And I'm glad they were having a good time, but they would have had an even better time if they'd have known. So I was like, if I can do something where I can pass on all the tips and advice that I've learned to get people access to the information, then perfect. So that was the kind of catalyst for all of this, which was amazing. But the other thing we should talk about is over planning. Over planning is a joy kill. Is that a word? Killjoy. Killjoy. Terrible. Terrible. In a sense of if you're having to clock watch because you're trying to plan your day out to the minute. And I think that's the thing with Disney. I always say it's great to have a structure to your day, but with that, you kind of know, oh, okay, we want to eat here, and these are a few things we'd like to do. But it also gives you flexibility because if you see a parade that you didn't know was on, you can go and watch it. Or you never know what's going to happen as well because the parks are busy. You might be thinking, okay, we can get from this ride to this ride in 10 minutes. But if it's really busy and there's people in the way, it might take you 20 minutes. And then your whole day is thrown out of whack and you're getting frustrated because it's not going the way you expect. So I do think over planning can be as bad as under planning because you still want to be able to take in those things. And that's something I love about Disney is the little details. So like when you're walking down Main Street and you see like Imagineers up on the walls and in the windows, like that's so fun to try and spot your favorite Imagineers and stuff like that. Or like you suddenly see a character do a pop-up meet and greet and you can miss all these things if you're rushing around looking at your watch and the app and being like, we've got to get to places at this time. And also things happen, like some days people might be more tired, maybe someone doesn't feel 100%, and if you've got no flexibility to your schedule, it can really put a dampener on things. And I think that's where tensions flare. And I'm sure all of us who have visited with other people at some point have noticed a little bit of shortness amongst people in the group. And I think it's easy to do. So I think over planning can also kill your trip if you're not careful. Sarah, you say you're always torn between wanting to find out everything in order to not miss out on things, and then on the other side, I still want to be surprised by things and not have a spoiler of everything. And I think you're 100% right because you do want to still be like wowed by things. And I think that's the thing. Like, so I will typically like with like parades or shows, I'll never ever watch them in advance of me seeing them because I want to get the first-hand experience. And sometimes, but same with new rides. And one of my favorite things from our visit was when we went on Rise of the Resistance and it was Sarah's first time and she hadn't looked anything up. So we were all so excited to go on it with her, but also like to see her reaction to everything. And I think that's great. Sometimes I will look rides up. So like Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, I looked that up because I was like, will it make me motion sick? And the answer is yes, it will. Which is why I've avoided it so far. But stuff like that can, for me, brings a bit of comfort. If I go in, like with Tron, I'm normally okay with coasters like Tron, but because part of it is in the dark coasters do kind of make me feel sick these days. So I was like, I want to watch that just so that when I'm on it, I feel more prepared. but I think you're so right. Like sometimes knowing too much, it kind of kills the trip because there's no surprises left. Although I think a park that's really good for that is Disneyland in California because there's so many roaming characters and like live music just pops up everywhere. So like there's always unexpected things happening, and I loved that about Disneyland. So that is a park that's really really good for even if you know a lot, there's still surprises, which I loved. So he said, is there a calendar to show how busy the parks are to avoid really busy days? And yes, so some places you can. So if you type in whatever park you want to go to and crowd calendar, there will be websites that do general crowd calendars. And it's difficult because Disney now is changing very rapidly. So every year, things tend to be different. So, like Disneyland Paris, the past year and a half has been very different to how we experienced it before. So like times that typically tended to be quieter are no longer quiet. And you're like, how is it this busy? Like midweek in March when there's no school holidays on. Like it's interesting how they are changing, but the crowd calendars do give you a vague idea of like the busiest times of the year to visit and the least busy days and weeks typically. And I think that can be really, really good. And I think there's general rules of thumb for me, like Disney World. I will always do Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios between like a Tuesday and a Thursday if possible. If I'm going to do a Disney World theme park on the weekend, it's probably going to be Animal Kingdom, but I will tend to try and do rest days on the weekend and avoid the parks just because that's when they are super super busy. But yeah, there's general things you can do, and it has worked out kind of well. My park days in Disney World tend to always work out kind of quiet. I haven't had like awfully terrible busy days so far, so hopefully that's worked out. Um, but yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because you want to be able to maximize your trip, and you're like, where is everyone else? And I don't want to be near me. That would be fantastic. Hi, Lila, thank you so much for joining us, Drake. It's lovely to see you. It's fantastic. We have touched upon this, but not having breaks is another one of the things that I've put as a way you're ruining your own trip because it's how I ruined my own trips. It's also how I ruined my foot because I actually got plantar fasciitis from being in Disneyland Paris, and I did a 5-day trip, and I was just wearing the trainers that are comfortable to wear at home. I was wearing some Skechers, and the problem they were saying that because my physiotherapist was saying for me Skechers don't work because where they're kind of soft, it doesn't give my foot enough support because I've got quite a high arch. So and because I'd worn them before, they weren't like worn out, but they start to lose their structure quite quickly. And that's how I ended up with plantar fasciitis. And let me tell you, like on the last day, I was in absolute agony. And then once I got back to the UK, I couldn't walk for like a week, and I was like, oh no, this is no good. And that was because I didn't have enough breaks. And I was like, I'm going to do 5 full out days, and it was the worst thing. It was the worst thing, and it's cost me hundreds of pounds of physiotherapy. And I've learnt my lesson. I've learnt my lesson. Won't be doing that again. I've put another thing as unrealistic expectations, and I think this is so hard to manage because I think a lot of people go in thinking what Disney will be like, but you can't really know until you're there. And I think sometimes expecting, like we said, if you think it's going to be like super, super quiet and everything's going to work perfectly, nothing's going to break down, it can be difficult because the parks can be busy. Sometimes people can be rude. There's things that can happen. So I always think kind of again, just being more flexible and being like, okay, like if something breaks down, hopefully it'll come up in a couple of hours. It's not a problem. We'll go on something else. Because it can really, really trash your holiday if you kind of go in expecting too much. Because Disney is magical, but it is still a theme park, and we know theme parks things happen, things go wrong. So we have to kind of try and manage our expectations. I think a thing that can be difficult is unrealistic expectation when it comes to budgeting. And I find this more so in America because America, there can be a lot of like hidden charges that if people don't know about it, it can really ruin the trip. So stuff like you have to pay taxes on top of anything you buy, which is very frustrating because when you get to the till, you don't know how much you're actually going to pay. But that can be difficult. So that's like merchandise and food. If you're going to table service restaurants, the 20% tip that can quickly eat into your budget if you didn't know you were going to have to do that. I've done a video before about the hidden charges of staying off-site because sometimes you'll have resort fees. You might have to put a security deposit down. a lot of offsite hotels say they have a park shuttle, so you book thinking fantastic. You get there and there's only 2 buses a day, one at 10 o'clock and one at 3 p.m. And you're like, they're not times I want to go to the park, so you have to pay for Uber or Lyft, and then that adds hundreds of dollars onto your trip. So I always think, try and find out all of the costs that are going to be involved. Like literally, before I go, my psychotic wall of spreadsheets, I literally to the penny kind of know how much I will roughly be spending, because I will look up like which restaurants I'm going to go to. I tend to over budget for the restaurants, so I might add on, like if I was to have 2 courses, how much would that cost? So I know that I've got enough money. I make sure I add the tax and the tip. Make sure that there's no hidden charges. If I'm going to be visiting somewhere else, how much is it going to cost me to park or to get Ubers and Lyft, stuff like that, just so you kind of don't get any horrible, scary, unexpected charges, and then all of a sudden your trip becomes significantly more expensive than you were expecting it to be. Um, and I think another unrealistic expectation is if you're visiting the international parks, expecting everything to be in English. And I always find it funny when you visit Disneyland Paris and people are like, why are they speaking French in the ride? And I'm like, because we're in France. It's a given. And it's like, if you go to the international parks, they will be speaking Japanese, they will be speaking Chinese. And I actually think they do a really good job in Disneyland Paris of, like, if you go to see the shows where they do it in the mixture of French and English, you can follow along. Some of the rides, sometimes you'll see the pre-show or something in English, another time it'll be French. So I think they do try and balance it out really well. But I think it should be expected that the things will be in the language of the country. And it is amazing that cast members actually will speak multiple language in the international parks. That won't be a problem. But for stuff like rides and stuff, I would kind of expect it to be in the native language. So yeah, that's one I always find really, really funny. When people are like, why are they speaking French in France? And I'm like, maybe because it's France. It's amazing. Hi Laura, lovely to see you. How are you doing? I've got another little bullet point about hotels, and I think one way that you can kind of ruin your own trip with hotels is not doing research into perhaps what's available at the hotel, the amenities, um, how you're going to get from the hotel to the parks, stuff like that. What's included, what's not. I think what's interesting is, like, when you stay at Disneyland Paris, if you book the package, your tickets are included in the room rate. Brilliant. If you go to the US parks, the tickets are never included. So you have to add them on top, which adds a significant amount of money on top. If you've only been to Disneyland Paris, you wouldn't know that. You would kind of expect that perhaps that's how all the Disney parks operate. So that can be a bit of a shock. I always think distance from the parks is something to consider. So if you're going to be staying off-site, seeing how long is it going to take you? Is there different transportation? Disney World, of course, in Orlando, there's tons and tons of accommodation all over the place. You can get villas, there's lots of hotels, apartments, or you can stay on site. So it's kind of working out how far away are the parks and how are we going to get there. That's always something to consider. Like I've said before, hidden fees. And then checking, like, those shuttles when they have those sneaky little free shuttles in offsite hotels, and they're not free, or they don't go very often. They're like once a day. But that is something I like about Disney resorts, is you do have the free transportation, and that helps massively because it just makes your life easier. You're not having to worry. You're not having to worry. You can get around, and no matter where you stay, you're always going to be able to get wherever you need to go, which I love, and it's not going to cost you anything, which is fantastic. Um, Disney Godmother had a great question, which was, "What are my dream Disney hotels if money was unlimited?" And like I say, I've already kind of talked myself into going to the Disneyland Hotel in Disneyland Paris for my 40th birthday. I will do a very short stay there, but it'll be great to be able to have that experience. It'll be amazing. We, of course, all need to go and stay in the Frozen Suite now. We need to check this Michael Jackson piano. So we need to do our group trip, our GoFundMe trip, and it will be amazing. I'd really, really love to stay at the Polynesian Village Resort in Disney World. I love the theming of that hotel. It's absolutely stunning. I love the beach. I'd really like to stay at Wilderness Lodge, but on one of the waterfront cabins. If money was no option, that's what I would love. They look so peaceful, so relaxing. That looks fantastic. I'd love to go to Aulani in Hawaii, which looks beautiful. It's just stunning. And I think in the Asian parks, like the Toy Story Hotel in Tokyo, looks so good. Like, the theming is unreal. and it just looks so much fun. So I would absolutely love to stay there. But I think that's the thing. There's so many great hotels to stay in, and I do like that. No matter what your budget is, you can. I think the value resorts, every value resort I've stayed in has always been great. I don't think value resorts mean they're not good hotels. And particularly, I actually will die on the hill. I don't think there's a bad hotel at Disneyland Paris at all. I think they're all really, really good. Um, I know a lot of people kind of talk about Disney World and they're like, oh, but the value resorts are like motels. And I'm like, I think of motels as being like quite rough and dodgy. I think they're amazing. The fact that they're supposed to be like 2-star hotels, I'm like, they're nothing like what I would expect a 2-star hotel to be like. I think they're really, really good. The only place where I don't kind of think staying on site is always worth it is Disneyland, because they've only got 3 hotels. All of them are deluxe resorts. They're all incredibly expensive. And the only benefit you get is 30 minutes early entry. No other perks, which I'm really surprised about. Even stuff like booking dining, you don't get an advantage. It's not like you can book all of your dining at your 60-day mark. You still have to do it day by day like everyone else. And because there's so much more, and because the whole of Disneyland is surrounded by hundreds of hotels, so there's so many different ones to pick, different themes, different room types, different prices. I don't think it's worthwhile. If you have the money for your fantasy, and I actually think I loved going to the Grand Californian Hotel to visit. Like, it's really beautiful, really stunning. And I'm like, oh, I think I'd like to stay there. But it's one of those, like, if I won the lottery and you go, I'll treat myself, but I don't think I would need to ever stay on site at Disneyland. I think there's loads of other great hotels that are significantly cheaper. So that's the only outlier, I think, which is it's just a very interesting. I think it's great as a destination. The fact that because Disneyland was kind of built in the heart of a city, and then the city built itself around the resort, if that makes sense. So you did have like Anaheim itself as a town. Then when they built Disneyland, they just filled the whole area with hotels and restaurants and shopping. Which makes it really unique because it's not kind of out on its own like the other Disney parks are. So I think it's a very interesting destination to visit. But let's have a little look. Oh, okay. We've got some more questions. Let me have a little check. I've got a little. I've had to write them down like an old person because again, being old, I do have a printer, but my printer's run out of ink. So I have to go and refill that. And I do have a phone. I could write notes on my phone, but I'm too old. I've just got used to writing with my hands. I can't stop myself. Okay, let's have a little look. Okay, Bolene actually had a question of tips for solo travelers with meeting characters. And I think this is really interesting because when you're solo, you don't have necessarily the advantage of having someone else who can take photos or videos for you. But what I would say, if it's like an official meet and greet, the cast members there will be happy to take photos for you on your device, which is great because then you can get those like full length shots, which is fantastic. I would say if you aren't in an area where there are cast members that can do that, I just go for the good old selfie and try and have my arm out as far as possible because obviously you can't use selfie sticks, which is a shame. But what's really, really good is if you do have someone who is there with you, at least on Samsung phones, I don't know about iPhones, but I would imagine they probably do it. But what you can do, which I think is really fun, is you can record videos and then in the corner of the screen there is a round button. And if you press that, it takes photos at the same time it's recording video. So what's really, really great is someone can do both video and photos for you. So if you can quickly do a rundown for them, fantastic. Or if someone ever asks you to do video or photo for them, and they do have that function, it's nice if you kind of add in a few stills, some little snaps for them that they maybe aren't expecting. So I always think that's kind of nice. Or something you could do is if you have a little tripod, Disney accept tripods if they're not extendable. So if you've got something that you can just, or even if you just rest your phone on like a wall or something, and use the timer function. So that way you can kind of get more long distance photos of you and characters without kind of having someone else there. Something else Samsung phones do is if you show the camera your palm, it will take a photo. So that again, that's really handy if you're a bit further away. You can just show your palm and it will take a photo. But I do think that is a difficulty as a solo traveler. But I always love a selfie, and I always think it's super, super fun. And the characters are always super happy to do a selfie as well, which is great. I love Berlin. You also write everything down with pen and paper, and that's the thing. Yep, 100%. It's just the way of doing things. I can't cope, and there's something nice about writing things out. I feel like it goes into my brain more. It just works better. But yes, Berlin says the hack with the video and the photos. A cast member told you about that, which is great, and I think that's really nice that a lot of cast members do know that, so they will use that trick for you, which is fantastic. So you end up seeing these like little videos or photos you weren't expecting, which I think is so nice. But yes, think I've covered most of my points. I did have a section about children. Now, I didn't know whether to mention it or not because obviously I don't have children, so I don't have first-hand experience. But from what I've seen or from people I know that have visited with children, um, something I always think is great is to kind of let children lead in the sense of if they're wanting to do something, they've got loads of energy, fantastic. If they're feeling a bit tired, maybe just let them rest a bit because I think what can happen or what I tend to notice is obviously parents will have saved for so long to go and they've got in their mind the expectation of what they think the trip will be like. And then obviously with kids, they can be unpredictable. And especially if you're going to like Florida, where they will be having jet lag, it's significantly hotter than they used to. They are going in long queues and they don't really know why they're just standing around. They're eating food that's unfamiliar and then being whizzed around on rides. I can see why they might be a bit grumpy or not feeling the magic 100% of the time because that is a lot. That's very overstimulating. But then I also see the parents who, because they've saved so much, they put so much planning and time into this like magical trip. If the kid is like being a bit grumpy or not into it, they're frustrated. So I think the best thing to do is to kind of take your cues from the kids, and if they need a little break, no worries. You can come back and do the stuff a little later in the day, stuff like that. As I say, I don't have kids, so maybe it doesn't work like that. But I feel like it seems to be like a more enjoyable experience if you can kind of let them lead a little bit. And like I say, I can totally see how it could be overwhelming because the thing is, when we're waiting in a queue, we know what to expect and why we're waiting in a queue. But for a kid, it's like, what is happening? Why am I just stood around in this building with a lot of people? Or like jet lag. We understand what jet lag is, and maybe like we can push through and stuff, but kids maybe can't. And I'm like, I can totally understand why they're not feeling the best of themselves 100% of the time. So I think it's great to kind of just give them a bit of grace and be like, you do you, and we'll have a great time. Um, but as I say, this is coming from someone who has no kids and no experience with kids, so that might be completely wrong. Richard, this is a great question. Have you ever tried the paid viewing spot in Disneyland Paris for the night show? And I haven't yet. I was wanting to do it in January, but then we just didn't need it. But what I think is great about that is you are very close to the castle and you have a great view. Now, interestingly, when we went in January, we ended up standing right behind the people in the reserved viewing spot. So we kind of had a similar experience. Now, of course, they were a bit closer than we were. But I think it's a really, really great way to kind of not be as crowded because there's not as many people in that area and to have a very close upfront view and also not have to get there hours early. So I definitely think it can be a great benefit. However, I don't know if we were just really lucky, but we'd eaten in Colonel Hattie's. So we were walking towards the castle, coming from kind of Frontierland way. And we just ended up standing behind the reserved section. And what was great about that is because the reserved section was not full, there was like a gap in front of us where there was no one stood, which meant we had a fantastic kind of unobstructed view. So I do think it just depends on if you don't want to have to be waiting around for hours and you want a bit more space. I think it's a really, really good option. And it's something I would like to try for the new Tales of Magic show because it'll be really great to kind of have that first experience seeing it and having a really fantastic close up view. So if anyone has done that, do let us know what you think. Did you think it was worth the money? Because I think it's that thing, like we were saying earlier, kind of balancing comfort and convenience with budget. And I do think it's one of those things. If you're wanting to have like the best fireworks experience and you don't mind paying a little bit for it, it's a really, really good option. And I love the fireworks show. And the worst thing is when you wait for ages, and then the kids go on the shoulders and you see nothing. So like I will pay money to avoid that if I can. And I having seen now where that spot is and where it the viewing point is, I think it's really good place to go and see the fireworks. So yeah, if you want that nice up close view with far fewer people, it's so worth it. Zoe, or leave the kids at home. Your first adult only trip in November, which will be so much fun. Yeah, that's another option, isn't it? We just leave the kids at home. We'll just have an adult only trip, and I'm so excited you're going to have that, and I can't wait to hear what you think of that experience. And this is something I love about Disney is that no matter what way you visit, it's always unique. So if you do solo trips or couples trips or family trips or friends trips, they're all a really different experience, but they're all really great. And again, this is why I say like people are like, why do you keep going to Disney? And I'm like, you don't understand. It's very different. The way you visit, the things you do. And I would never get bored of it. I would never ever get bored of it. And I think all of the different ways to visit have their pros and cons. And they all kind of give you such a different and unique experience, and kind of when you're with other people it's great to make those memories together, but then sometimes it's nice if you do a solo trip and you can do the parks however you fancy. Sometimes you just want an adults only trip to do all of the things you might not get to do with your kids, or just to have like maybe a more relaxed time as well as being able to do everything you want in Disney. So yeah, I just think it's fantastic. It's so much fun, so I can't wait for you. This is a great question. When dining goes up at Walt Disney World, is it 10 days or 11 days ahead you can book? The website says 10 nights. So, yes, you can book the first 10 days of your trip at the 60-day mark if you're staying at an on site hotel. So, it'll be the first 10 days. And then what will happen is on your like 59 days, so the next day after your 60 days, you'll be able to book for the 11th day of your trip and so on. So, you'll still have the benefit of being 10 days ahead of other people, but you just have to do those final few days one by one. But yes, it's 10 days, which is fantastic. Richard, I'm 100% agreeing with you. The paid show really doesn't seem worth it for the parades, and that is somewhere where I don't think it is worthwhile because the parade is such a long route that there's always places you can see it, and I don't think you need to pay for it. I don't think that's worthwhile. But I think the fireworks, because where people kind of start queuing very, very far in advance, and it can be so crushed and squashy and like kids on shoulders, which is the bane of my Disney life. Like, I think that could be worthwhile, but I totally agree. I don't think parades are worth it at all. Hi, Donna. Lovely to see you. How are you? You said you've done the fireworks viewing spot in August because you want to see Dreams one last time, and they changed it to Illuminations again. But you loved it. Great view, wasn't squashed, but you were solo, so it could cost a lot more as a family. And 100%, that's so true. And that's the thing. Like, I always, when I do multipass, for example, in Disney World, I love it. But I'm also aware that if I'm paying for just me, it's like $30 or something. The second it's a family, you're spending over $100, and that will make a big, big difference. So yeah, I think you're so right, Donna. Perhaps the amount of people that you're going to be doing the viewing spot with might change the perspective on whether it's worth the money. But if you're paying for yourself, it definitely seems worthwhile because it's just so nice to not be squashed as well and just have a bit more breathing space and just be relaxed. I think is really, really, really nice, which is fantastic. So it'll be so, so good. But I've actually come to the end of my little notes, which is fantastic. And the questions. I think we've answered all the questions. But if you do have any other questions or any comments, your own experiences to share, do let us know because I love this. This is always one of my favorite times of the month. The live stream is always a joy. I love getting to chat to you. So thank you so much, as always, because I never ever take it for granted that you take time out of your day to come and chat and to send questions in and like really engage is so perfect. So thank you so so much. But yeah, and it's just the best talking about Disney and getting to hear other people's experiences and tips and advice. I think is fantastic because as I say, we're all obviously planners and people that love the Disney park. So getting people's first-hand experiences, I think, is invaluable, and that's something I enjoy the absolute most is hearing what you've loved, what you recommend, and even the stuff you don't recommend, because it's so helpful to know like this was not a good experience, this isn't worth money. It is fantastic. Yes, Donna, you're so right. Doing the fireworks and paying for the viewing area is worth it for one night, and then the rest of the time you can do rides during the fireworks for short queues, which I think is so so true. Because like that's the thing, isn't it? You want to balance like seeing the fireworks, but also getting on the short queues, and the shortness is huge. It makes such a difference, and somewhere like Disney World as well, you can get fantastic views of the fireworks in other parts of the park, and even on the rides, like I reposted a video on TikTok the other day of this person who was on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train as the rides were going off, and absolutely incredible, absolutely incredible. So so worth it. So yeah, I think that's so worthwhile. Jill has said, remember to hit the like button, which is very kind of you, Jill. Thank you so, so much. And yeah, I'm very, very excited for, I've got a batch of new videos coming up all about planning to visit the parks. And then in May, I'll be going back to Disneyland Paris. So there will be some vlogs, but I'm also going to start filming planning videos in the parks. So when I visit Disneyland Paris, if I'm talking about a specific topic, I'll film it inside the park rather than in my living room and inserting footage over the top, because I think it'll be really great for you to be able to see it in real time. And also, it'll just be a much more interesting background. So I'm very excited from kind of like the end of May onwards. The Disneyland Paris planning video should be from inside the park, which will be fantastic. So you will still see my background, obviously, when I'm talking about Disney World and Disneyland. But in the long run, I would like to also do that for those parks. So once we're back out there, we will start doing that as well. But I'm just very excited for that. I think it's going to be fantastic. Jill says Big Thunder Mountain in Paris was the fireworks one is fantastic. And yes, what a dream. Because like you say, Big Thunder Mountain is already iconic. And the fact that it's an outdoor ride, you get that incredible like vista of the fireworks is absolutely fantastic. So it has to be done. Has to be done. I absolutely love it. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining me on this Sunday. And this has been a funny one because where February is a short month, I think it was only like 3 week gap between our last live stream and this one, but the next live stream will be the last Sunday of March, so it'll be a little further away. But if there is a specific topic you would like it to be about, do let me know, because I always try and have a topic so that we can talk about something, have a little bit of a theme. But I do love all of the questions because that is the best part. The interaction is the most amazing part of the live stream. So thank you so, so much. But yes, if there is any planning topics you would like to see in videos or a theme for the next live stream, do let me know. And like I say, we're doing the Most Magical Meetup 19th of July in London on Instagram. I will go and put in my stories the link to the page if you do want to kind of follow along, if you are able to come. And yeah, wow, oh my god, I can say it. Until next time, I hope you have the most magical day. I never end the live stream with that, but we can do it now. We're doing it. It's so good. But thank you once again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a wonderful rest of February. Like I say, this feels very early in the month to be having a live stream, but February is that weird little month where we have not that many days left, but it still feels like much more days than is reasonable for this live stream to be this early in the month. It's so good. But thank you so much once again. And I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you so much for your interaction. And I will see you real soon. Bye bye.